Hello everyone, you're welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to learn about functions. And like I do say, there are some programming concepts that are common across different programming languages. Functions happen to be one of them. Okay, so what is a function? A function is a block of code that perform a specific task. So when you think of having uh group of codes, lines of codes, executable statements that are going to produce the same result, you can put that in a function. And this actually enhances or promotes code reusability. So you'll be able to reuse the code over and over again. So there are different types of functions actually. But let me just show you what you are going to get from this video. You are going to learn about the types of functions that we have in Python. You are going to learn about how to define your function declaration or definition. You are going to learn about function call, how to call a function. You are also going to learn about optional arguments. All right. So for types of function, we have different types, but the main types are the built-in functions and the user-defined functions. For the built-in functions, they are the functions that have been predefined. Okay, that means you are not the one responsible as a programmer for the arrangement of the block of codes and all of that, specifying the parameters and all of that. It was predefined and it is available for you to use and just call the function and use at any point in time. Example of such functions that we have used before is our print statement, our print function, our int function, our float function, our which other one have we used? Range function, learn. We've used a lot of them actually, but you will still see most of them even as we go on in the training. So those functions that already exist that you just call and then you use, they are the built-in functions. Then we have the user-defined functions, which are the functions that you as a programmer you think of, okay, so this is what I want to achieve. Then you join your codes together to do that and you put that in a function. That means you as the programmer are the one that defined. So that's why it's called a user defined function. So for example, if I'm adding numbers together and I know I'm going to keep repeating these tasks, okay, I can actually just create a sum function or addition function so that each time I want to add numbers together, I call this function and it performs the task for me. So that's the concept of user defined function. Okay, and for every function that has been created, you have to call the function. If you don't call the function, nothing happens. If you don't call the print function, the function actually exists, but if it's not called, it's not going to be used or you won't be able to use it in your code. The same way for your user defined functions. Once they are defined or created, then you can call them. And if a function has not been defined or created before, that means the function cannot be called. Okay, all right, so let's just move straight into the practical session and then we'll learn more about optional parameters and all of that and difference between parameters and arguments even as we go on. So stay right there as we move into the practical aspects of the training. So what I will just do now is to take us to Python documentation and allow us to see through what they have here. We have some built-in functions here. We can see them, we can see them, we can see them. So you can actually come here and also read about each of these. Probably I will drop the link or you can just search it up yourself. So you can see each of the function were defined. Okay, so what exactly are they used for and how are they used and all of that. Okay, so what I'm just going to do now is we're just going to continue and move on to user defined function. So if we use any of these I might mention, and even if I don't mention, so far you see a function, the way you recognize a function is just by that calling, I mean not calling, the parenthesis right beside it. So you will see a function name, right? And then right beside it you will see this open and close parentheses, right? So anywhere you see something like this, you should know that I'm using a function. So the first question that should come to your mind is that a user defined function or is that a built-in function? All right, so that being said, let's just move on to the second type of function that we have. We have the user defined function. So this one you as a user, you as the programmer, are the one that saw the need for it and then decide to arrange your blocks of code and then create the function and then make it available for you to be able to use over and over again for as many as possible time that you want to use it. Don't forget, code reusability is the main essence of a function. All right, so let's see this. How do we create, how do we declare a function in Python? We use the keyword def, okay, and then followed by the function name. So whatever name you want to give to your function, that's what you're going to put here, and then followed by the parentheses. All right, and then we have the full column similar to the way we had it when we're working on the if statement, the loops, right? And then we have the block of code here. So the code that will perform the tags are going to be embedded, indented inside this definition up here. Okay, and then after that, once you define your function, the next thing is if you want to use it, then you call it. So the function call is just you calling the name, writing the name of the function. In this case, the name of our function is function name, and then put your parentheses there. All right, so I have some examples for us. I have about three of them. So I want us to take the first example. We're just going to create a function that it's a kind of a biodata function, okay? And it's just going to ask the user for their name and other details. And then each time we need that function, we're able to, call it for any student want to use it for. All right, so let's get started. Based on what I explained earlier, the keyword is def. So def, then the function name. Since it's a biodata function, I can actually just do biodata and then follow with your parentheses, right? Then I'll put my full column and then I'll go ahead and start the block of codes, arrange my block of codes that will determine the kind of task the function is going to perform. So now I'm just going to put a probably a print statement. No, I don't even need a print statement really. Name is equal to. So since the age is going to be integer value, then I'm just going to say convert that immediately. So I have age. And what other detail can we collect? What other detail? Maybe weight, which is not necessary though, but just for you to see that we can also have a float and also convert what we have from the console to a float. Mm, I'll just copy this for height. And I mean these two are not necessary, except we want to turn these tags to like a what's it called? Vitals in the hospital or something. Right, so height. Right, so I think I'm okay with this. So what I'm going to do now is to run the code. Now we can see that nothing is actually happening. I can't see the question, I can't see name, I can't see age, I can't see weight, I can't see height, right? But like your function will be there, okay? Until you call the function, nothing happens. So let's actually call this function now. Okay, so when I run this, it's asking me for my name, Teresa, age, weight, mm, height. I don't know. Maybe, maybe. All right, so that's it. I can use this function at any part of in any part of my code actually. All right, so but let me just use this function in a loop. since I'm going to do this for 10 students, right? So for high in range, if you don't know how to do this, please refer to the video. We've done a video on loops, okay, in range 10. This is just going to collect this information for 10 students, but I would just like to put a demarcation in between the the iteration. I'm going to run this again. It says next and then asks me again for another person's name. Alright, so to keep asking me until the iteration is completed, right? Okay, so we see how that is. So this function that I've created here, I can actually use the same way you use your print statement at any point you think you need it. That's the same way you can use data function. So it has become a function that you can call at any point in time. So far you've declared a function, it's readily available. So you will notice that the function we declared here, right? The parentheses are actually empty. If you look, okay, so if you notice for the range function, like we used here, we passed a value to it. we passed we can pass more than we can pass like three values to the range function. For the print statement, you've noticed that we do pass value to it too. In fact, the floats, we passed the value we want to convert. In this case, we are converting the value gotten from the input function, right? For the input function, we passed value into it, right? So those values are what we call arguments. Arguments. Now, you will see these two words used interchangeably or even confused in some cases, and you can also confuse them. I do confuse them sometimes, right? But they are actually two different things, doing similar things, but then two different things, right? We have parameters and then we have arguments. For parameters are the variables that you have in your function definition, that function declaration part. They are called local variables. Okay, so let's see them. So when I was declaring this particular function, this is the function declaration or the definition part, the part where you specify the function name, the part where you specify the kind of inputs that the function is going to be accepting to be able to do the work it's going to do. For example, for the range function, if I mistakenly add a text, okay, so maybe we should just make that mistake now and just add a text here and say 10. Let's see. So we can see an error that says str object cannot be interpreted as an integer. So at this point, the data type of the input is already determined, okay, at the point of function declaration. So at this point, if I'm entering something else, it's just not going to accept that, okay. So it's telling me that this is expecting an integer argument, okay. So your data type for the input is just going to be determined at the point of the function declaration or definition, right? Okay, so I'm just going to use an example to explain that. And all right, so let's move straight to our second example. For the second example, we are going to write in a code to calculate the area of a circle. Now I got the formula online. It's by r square. Okay, so what we just do, there are different way of doing this, right? But I would just like to import the maths library and then just use that, create my function now, dev area sec into bracket. Now here I'm going to be specifying values. Okay, I'm going to specify my parameters. Now the difference between the function we wrote up there is that it doesn't take any argument, right? It doesn't take any parameters. Okay, so when we declared it, the parenthesis was empty, And then when we are calling the function, the parentheses must also be empty. So in this case now, we are going to see an example of a situation where we pass value into those parentheses, or when we are defining the function, we actually specify that values should be passed into them. Okay, now example of such situation is what we have used before. See our range function. For our range function, we pass the value of 10, right? For our float function, we pass the value we want to convert. For int function, we pass the value to convert. For our input function, we also passed a value, a prompt. Okay, so those are your what's it called now, arguments. Now they've been declared in the function as parameters. The point of you calling them, when you are passing the value at the point of calling the function, that's when you are we call that argument. So the difference between the two, I will show us now so that I won't confuse us a lot. Okay, so when I'm declaring my function, what I'm doing here is I'm going to be specifying the parameters, the variables that the function will use as input to perform the function the task is going to perform. So at this point, what will my function need? Since it's calculating area of a circle, which is pi square, I can see the variable here will be the radius, right? So this function is going to be taking radius from whoever want to call it, right? So it's going to be taking radius. So I'm going to specify radius there. And then what will the function do? It's just going to multiply this together. So what is going to we are going to have area is equal to math dot. You can see all the math functions that we have. Math dot pi, mhm, times the radius that is passed will then be raised to the power of 2, right? Yeah, I think I'm right. All right, so it's just going to return area. Okay, so this is my function. I'm going to run it. A return statement is just a way of saying I'm done with the calculation, then I'm sending the result to you. Okay, so it's a return statement is just doing what the literary word means. It means return the value. Okay, not all function return values. Okay, now I'm just going to call the function here. I will say area underscore sec. Now, when I'm calling this function, I'm going to make a mistake now. I'm not going to put in any value. So let's see what happens. Let's see. It says area set missing one positioner argument. Okay, because when I was creating it, I specified that it takes a parameter and the parameter is radius. And then but the time I decided to call the function, I'm not passing any argument. You can see the way I'm using the two words now. At the point of definition or declaration of your function, it is called parameter, and at the point of calling, it is called argument. So argument is just a variable that is passed into the function to perform its task. Okay, we also call this actual parameters. While for parameters, they are the variables in the function definition, okay, and they are called local variable because they only work within the scope of that function alone, and they are also called formal parameters. So you can see the way I'm using the words now. So here I'm supposed to actually be passing some argument here. So what will I do? So let me say my area of a circle is 3, and then let's see if it's going to do anything. Okay, so I can see the value it's brought out for me, right? I can use this in another calculation. So maybe I want to create a variable that is called sum, and then in the sum I want to say area of circle. I want to just add 20 plus what we have here. Okay, so let me just, I will have to print the sum, right? Print sum. Yeah, so it's just going to add 20 to what the former result was. Okay, so let me just do something here for this area, right? I just want to convert what we have, so I will just run, put all this in a Rand is also a built-in function, right? I'm just going to round this entire result into two decimal places. So I'm right. All right. So if I run this again, I should be having. Okay. So I think something is wrong there. Okay, so I have this 28.27 using the round function. I'm able to round the area to that particular decimal places. All right, so let's move on. We have another example here. We want to write a function that will be available for us to be able to convert temperature from Fahrenheit to Celsius, right? So I got this formula online. Okay, and then once you have your expression here, just convert it to a way that your Python can understand. Okay, so what do I want to do? If I'm going to write this particular program the way we do write it before, we will need our function, but we want to put this in a function for us to be able to reuse it at any point in time. So I'll just say dev um temp convert into bracket. Now, what value do you think this is going to be taking? Is it going to be accepting any value or not? Is it going to be as taking any argument? Are we going to be declaring a parameter while defining this function? So I think we are going to be passing the temperature in Fahrenheit to it. So we have F, so it's going to be taking F, right? And then I think that's the only variable I can see there though. Then let's say um to C is equal to, now that formula there, how do we write it? Just say 32. No, this won't be 32. Now this will be F converting temperature in Fahrenheit to Celsius. So I actually got this formula online. Okay, so let's have, the thing is, once you have your expression, okay, your mathematical expression, all you just have to do is convert it to a format that your Python can understand or your programming language can understand. So in this case, I'll just say dev, okay, and then what will be the name of the function? I think you can actually just do this by yourself. Pause the video, do it, and then once you are done, come back to the video and see if uh we might not have exactly the same solution. That's the thing, but just do it by yourself before you continue. Anyway, so I'll continue now. Dev, I'll say term to sec. Okay, so what value is it going to be taken? What parameters am I going to create? So in this case, let's look for what is variable in my formula. In my formula, the variable will be the temperature in Fahrenheit. Okay, so I'll just call this F. And then I'm going to have now the formula. I will say um temp convert is equal to, now that will be into bracket F, which is the temperature, minus 32, then times 5 divided by 9. Return temp. Oh, so I'm going to run this now. Okay, let me just comment this formula out. Okay, and then I come here, I call my function. Then I must pass the value to it, right? So because I have required argument that I've specified, which is that F there. So I'm just going to say maybe 32. Okay, I think I spelled that wrongly. Okay, so can someone figure out what is wrong? Don't know. It's not defined. Hmm? Oh, right. So I was using the variable name for instead of the function name in the call. Okay, this is the function name. Okay, that's 0 degrees. So let's do this. I will just ask the user to be the one to enter the temperature. I will say F is equal to input. I'll make this a float. Fahrenheit. Mhm. And then okay. So whatever they enter, right? 0.0. Or I made a mistake here. So I should be passing F here, not 32. So let's see what happens. So that'll be 80. This is the value I got here. So I just browse to see if yeah, so that's it there. So you can actually test run this. And like I said, this function can be called and used even for the value return can be used for any other calculation at any point in time and all, just the same way you use your rand function or any other um, function. Okay, so I think that will be it for the third example.